um, in a silo, but it was something that has been discussed for years, and we're making a move in that direction now. So today we're looking to communicate our progress, kind of bring you up to speed on the research we did on the top submissions, and then list those submissions and tell you what the top candidates are at the end of that. All right, I'm on a roll. So this, as we said previously, this was done back in October, late September, early October, compiled, and there was input from students, alumni, faculty, and staff, as well as administration. And you can see the names from, first of all, the students, the alumni, the faculty, the staff, and the admin. And it was compiled down into a list here at the bottom of the top submissions. And you can see Wolves, Whales, Wolverines, Werewolves, Wildcats, Warriors, and then, you know, a lot of W's, a little alliteration. Wombats, Hatters, Warthogs, Westies, Worms, and Tigers, rounding out the top submissions. So what we thought we would do is we would go through and we would talk through each of the submissions and tell you, you know, where the committee is, because we have what we don't want to do at the end of this process is come up with a mascot name that is used by a natural competitor. So as an example, right on this list, here's one of the top submissions is Warriors. Well, Eastern Connecticut State University, they are the Warriors. So that's an example of a mascot name we wouldn't go with. We also wanted to stay away from mascot names that were currently being used by one of our local school districts. So as you can see, Hatters is on there. Yes, it has a tie to the Danbury area, but it is the mascot of the largest high school in the state of Connecticut. So we want to stay away from things like that. And I believe there's another school on here with a mascot name that is used by a local school, should I say. So I would like at this point the committee members to step in and give us a little history, a little information for the town hall on the name, starting with Wolf and Wolves.
So we had a conversation about Wolf Pack.
Okay.
Okay, so that transformed into Wolf Pack, and the research and our conversations as we met in committees led to a tremendous number of universities in the U.S. And also in Canada who use Wolfpack as one word, two words, capital W, capital P, different spellings. And so it's a very popular mascot. And it was one of the, as you can see, one of the top submissions here. But there's a lot of overlap with other schools, and something that one of our committee members, and maybe Lori would like to step in as well here, brought up is that we have to keep in mind some merchandising issues if we were ever to choose a mascot, what possibilities we would have for athletics and the types of mascot design that we would have be able to use legally. So I don't know if Lori, you'd like to jump in?
Yeah, and you said it pretty well. I think one of the things that, as we go through this process, at some point we will need to do some additional research on if there's a particular name that's rising to the top that is not trademarked in any way or registered in any way, if we do really want to use it, is there a variation that that we want to put forward as an alternative? For example, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. So it's like NC State, it's the Wolf Pack. They have it together as one word. They've registered that. Some people are getting away with it, you know, they're the wolf pack, but it's two separate words.
Right.
That's how people are getting around those types of things, and or the logo. So there are certain things that we need to be careful of moving forward, regardless of what the name is. We just want to make sure that there's no licensing or any issues moving forward with how we market our new mascot, whatever that may be.
And Lori, I think you're up on Wales.
Wales. Obviously, there was, you know, Wales. Whalers is a big one that also came to light. Obviously, it has some meaning within the state of Connecticut and the hockey team. I would be lying if I said that I have expressed some concern about whatever name we come up with, whatever it is, that we make sure that it represents everybody. And what I mean by that is, if I have a larger student walking across campus, are they going to feel proud of wearing Wales on the front of their jersey? How is self-image going? How are they going to feel about that? And, you know, from an athletic standpoint, I would be remiss if I didn't say I would have some concern with an athlete who is, you know, if I've got an offensive lineman, he could be my best offensive lineman, but he's going to have some thick skin walking through a competitor's and having, you know, the Wales on the front of his jersey. I am concerned, whether it's male, whether it's female, whatever the name is. I just want to make sure that it is truly representative of this institution and that we can be proud of whatever name that we select. So, you know, it certainly, it does have some connection to the state of Connecticut, and I certainly can respect that. But I also have some concerns with this particular one. Yeah. So if anybody else wanted to add anything.
Well, I think the last point was, you know, obviously whales are not indigenous to Connecticut, although the one whale, I guess, that comes into Connecticut, the Long Island Sound, is the pilot whale. It's been quite some time since that happened, but obviously the whaling industry is the connection.
Yeah.
But and so Wolverines, who had Wolverines?
I think for Wolverines, Abatech, or I'm pretty sure Abatech, that's the mascot. So those are one of the high schools.
That's one of the high schools. It has the star. Got it. I see it.
Along with Tigers, which is Ridgefield High School's mascot.
Okay. And then, so who has werewolves?
I think the person who was reaching that or researching that probably had Wolverines and werewolves. But werewolves was, or is, I should say, a very popular suggestion among students. However, werewolves is common, and I believe, what is Easterns?
Easterns the Warriors.
Oh, they're Warriors. Okay, so Warriors is also another very popular student suggestion. So I believe those two, because werewolves was, I think we chose like wolf pack to be kind of like our wolf consideration, and then Wolverines was just already used. So I think that's what we got from our findings.
And we've mentioned with the Stars, the Wildcats and Warriors, local high schools. Wombats was kind of interesting because they're not native to North America at all. For those of you who are fans of The Lion King, might recognize what a wombat is. And very few universities in the country actually utilize a hog of any kind. The two most notable was the University of Arkansas, the Razorbacks, and then Texas A&M Kingsville also uses some variation of the hog in Connecticut, I believe it's Choate Rosemary, they're the wild boars. So this, and Daryl Dennis has told me this was one of the top, I'm sorry, warthogs, not wombats, warthogs, was one of the top recommendations back in the 70s when Colonials was chosen as the mascot. I got ahead of myself. And wombats, I skipped that one. Warthogs was pigs. Wombats, who had that, did the research on that one?
Yes, so myself and the Speak Truth to Power representative researched wombats. So the only other school that we could locate is that the University of Wisconsin has wombats as their mascot. So it's not something that's really used. Fun facts about wombats: they're herbivores. When they're in groups, they're either called a mob or a colony. So I'm not sure how we would call like college students like join the mob or whatever. But the wombats we found, it's, I don't want to say too broad, but there's nothing that I think would isolate students. And I think wombats could be, if that was to be the mascot, it would be easy to find characteristics that represent students, alumni, and faculty and administration.
And then the Westie. Who had the Westies? That was, I believe, a faculty and staff recommendation.
This is Tom. I had Westies. Yeah, the first item when I did the research on Westie was it is a breed of dog. And one of the committee members, Brian Stevens, I said it, and I wish I could chase the words when I said them out of my mouth. I called it a lapdog, and he quickly corrected me. It is not a lapdog. It is a terrier breed, and I don't think that I could find a university or college that used the Westies. Some of the other research that kind of put it in a more negative posture was it describes a Dublin, Ireland gang. In New York City, in Hell's Kitchen, there is a Westies New York City gang. So I figured a gang probably wouldn't be a good idea. And the one fact that when I closed up the research was, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Danbury Westerners, which is a local baseball team that plays out of Rogers Park. Their mascot's name is Westie. And that concludes my research.
Thank you, Tom. And then worms?
So that would be me again. And I learned something about Dennis Rodman, that his nickname is the Worm. So I did do some research, and that was about all I could find on the use of worms, in particular in athletics. There is a vintage flying worm reference at the University of North Texas that's now has a current mascot, the Eagles, and they're called the Mean Green. And there is a rugby club in Worm, Germany. There is a place in Germany that the name is Worm, but it certainly is not a common mascot. And I don't know why it was so popular on our list, but there it was. And I think it represents how this committee has worked as representing the survey results that we had, and that these are the suggestions that we received. We didn't come up with this list on our own. We're trying to guide the process and bring back to you what was most popular and some information about all the names.
Thank you. And we said Tigers. Tigers, I believe, also should have a star. That's, again, another local high school, along with Hatters, Wolverines, Wildcats, and of course Warriors was Eastern Connecticut State University. So there's the list as it's been kind of culled down, so to speak, as to where we are. So I think I can close this and we can take questions.
There's a guest with a hand up. I don't know if he or she should be directed to the chat mode. At this
Yeah,
point.
with the hand up, if you could type your question in the chat, please. I'm about to stop sharing here. Ah, there we go.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. Obviously, try to be respectful. We trust everyone here, and then we'll go in order as they come in.
So if there are no questions, we do
Excuse me
want
one
to.
second,
What?
I'm not sure that everybody can see the chat box or has access to the chat screen, so that appears to be what everybody's nodding, saying that they don't have access.
Ah, okay.
So if it's okay, as long as a participant has a hand up and we recognize them, I can unmute them to allow to ask their question.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
You know, this is altering our game plan, but here I go. Okay, GEG, you can unmute and ask your question.
Let's move to Danielle King then.
Okay. Danielle, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you, John. My question was for Westy. And it was mentioned that that was being used elsewhere, but would the spelling as far as copywriting and could that be changed if that were indeed final, one of the choices instead of WESTIE? If they're using that, could ours be STY instead? That's my
Ooh.
question.
That is a great question, and whatever, and let me step back from that and answer it a different way. Whatever the final selection is, the next phase of this process will be design, and then because one of the things, the charges we were given is we can't just go out and become the Knicks, and that would so whatever we come up with has to be unique, but then it also has to be designed specifically for us. And what many schools are doing, and Lori alluded to this particularly with professional teams, but colleges do it now, is copywriting whatever that is. And there's a famous reference, for those of you who grew up in the golden days of St. John's basketball, the logo that St. John's University in Queens used to use, they can no longer use it because some little school in the Midwest copyrighted that whole design. So if you look at their hats now, it's different than it was 30 years ago. So as part of the process of when we get to the final, yes, that can be a consideration, that if WESTIE is the name, but we feel that that's too close to something else, we could go with another variation. We do have latitude to do that, certainly, but we would rely on a mascot company to do that for us.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm going to go back to GEG if you could try now. Okay. it may appear that they're having difficult. Danielle, if you wouldn't mind putting your hand down, that'd be great. Next person up is going to be William Stewich. Hopefully I spelled that correctly. Give me one moment. You're now able to unmute.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Will Stavich. I'm a student at WestConn. First of all, thank you for sending out the email to allow students to come and participate in the open discussion. I appreciate that a lot. I'm here on behalf of the idea of the worms. If you got the big long response when you sent out the Google form, I was the one it was sort of my idea to do the worms. I got a couple of my friends behind it. I sent in that big worm idea. Not only do I want to thank you for considering the worms as much as you have and continuing to consider them. I noticed when we were discussing the research of the worms that there was another school with a flying worm, I think it was. Because I in my research of it, I never saw that. I find that interesting. So you said it was a flying worm and not like an earthworm?
Yes, so I'm trained in research, whether I'm researching in my discipline or anything else. So I did find it's in East Texas, and they're now the mean green. They're officially eagles, but there was a design that came about. It suggested a worm on their helmet, so it's a green. It looks like a green worm on their helmet, and so it's a vintage reference. Before you were born, maybe even before I was born, which is a long time ago. That's the only one I could find in the U.S. and then the rugby team in Germany. But I was intrigued by the worms. It certainly, the alliteration is there. So what inspired you to choose the worm?
When I was thinking about the mascot, I was, because I'm friends with the person who started throwing. I'm actually friends with the person who I think made the first petition to change the mascot, and so it's been on my mind for a while what the new mascot should be. And when I was thinking of things, like wolves and werewolves crossed my mind, and I settled on worm because to me, the worm is a really interesting animal where when you look at it, you might think that the worm might be unexciting or, not ferocious enough to be something you can get behind on a sports team or on an academic team. But when you think about it, worms are almost essential to our ecosystem, to our lifestyle, to everything. If worms were to disappear, it would throw the whole ecosystem into chaos, not just in America, but I'm sure in every other country in the world. And it really it cemented to me how important it is what we do at WestConn. And when you really think about what a worm is and what a worm does, just something that I think that we should all be a little more proud of worms in our everyday life. And I think to go with that for the mascot would be a good way to not only be proud of the worms, but be proud of ourselves as well.
I love it, Will. And as a tried and true bookworm, I applaud your recommendation.
Thank you very much. I actually do have to go at this point, but I appreciate you all for giving me some of your time and allowing me to even come and have this discussion. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. We're going to go ahead and move on to Melissa Stevens.
Hi, everyone. First, I just want to thank you all for your efforts that you all are putting into this amongst the many other things that we are all juggling during these crazy times. So first, thank you all. Secondly, my question is more of a process question. How are we going to go about making a final decision? Will that be by a university-wide vote? Is it going to be by majority? What will that process look like?
So it will be, thank you for the question, Melissa. It will be a community-wide vote back out to the same groups that we solicited the recommendations from. So the students, the alum, the faculty, and staff. putting out the list of finalists and going with a simple majority vote.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry, we are now with Seth Hurt. Seth, are you ready with your question? You need to unmute yourself first. Okay, it looks like there may be some technical difficulties there. We're going to go now to Jeff Schlicht. Jeff.
Thanks, John. Just a comment and then, well, a couple comments, I guess, regarding the worm idea. If you spell it W-Y-R-M, that's a way of talking about dragons in mythology, I believe. So you could come up with some interesting marketing ideas and still have the worm concept. So I'll just leave that with you to mull over. But I really wanted to go to what Lori was saying about we want a mascot that represents our values, and then ask us to think about what are our values. The place that we've articulated those are, I guess, in our mission vision statement. And they're all fairly abstract terms, right? They don't create a cuddly stuffed animal that we can sell in the bookstore. But if we're really talking about our values, it seems to me that something in there may have a path to the solution for this. All right, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, is there anybody else with a question? Yep. Okay, there's two more to come up. All right, I'm gonna go back to Glenn Gleisner first, and hopefully we can get this all. Glenn, give it a shot. Glenn, can you unmute yourself?
Just as a follow-up to Jeff's suggestion, I copied the university mission and vision in the chat for anybody who can see it, so it's there.
Okay, Glenn might have difficulty, so we're gonna see if Don Ferguson can come in.
Hey guys, just to follow up to what Melissa had talked about the process. So your final, are we limiting it to final 4, final 5? And I assume that we're discluding those that have already been taken by Eastern or other schools in the area. Is that correct?
Yes. So if you take that list and you cross out the Warriors, Hatters, Tigers, I always forget the 4th school. Lori usually reminds me. Then that would be the final list that would go out to vote. So I think it's 7 or 8 names.
All right, great, thank you. And just on a side note, my favorite mascot of all time is Banana Slugs. So the more individualized we can be is great with me.
Thank you, Don. All right, I'm going to see if we can get Glenn on here. Glenn, can you unmute yourself? No. Anna, do you have a way to unmute Glenn?
No, I've been trying. I can only allow to unmute, but I can't unmute them.
I have that same feature. Glenn, maybe you can type your question in the chat.
Right.
Ooh.
Do we have any other questions?
All right. Well, thank you all. If we have no other questions or comments, we appreciate everyone that was able to share their time with us this afternoon. We're delighted that we had 38 people on this town hall on a Friday afternoon, and it's still snowing, because that's way more than certainly we got in November. We hope to get this final voting done within the next 15 to 30 days, and make a recommendation, our final recommendation, signed off on by the committee and submitted back to the administration before the end of the school year, so announcement can be made before our community goes home for the summer.
So, Jay, let me just, if I can, just throw one other thing, just because at this point we will go out for the vote. And, I would just want to just kind of leave everybody on one thing. There's several segments of this, right? So we have our current student body who mean everything, to what we do and our everyday mission and our vision. We have our alumni who are former students who are struggling with this, and we want to, hear their voice along with our current student body's voice. We have faculty and staff who've committed a long period of time here, whether they've always been here or whether they're new to here. They want to feel a part of one unit. And there's one segment that I don't want to forget, and try when you do cast your vote to think of it this way. When and specifically to the students and to the alumni when they vote. You were a incoming student at one point. When you vote for something, what type of what mascot presents pride to you in whatever it is. So, and for whatever reason, you're going to vote the way you want, and that's great. But there is that other segment of recruitable students to our institution that I want to make sure that we are keeping in mind, and trying to figure out who we are in all of this has been definitely a process for this group, and I'm looking forward to the outcome, and moving forward for years to come with this. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there is even though you're a current student, go back to when you were a prospective student, and what are you looking for? If you're an alumnus that is on the call, and I understand the disappointment, but at the same time, it was the experience that you had here. What symbolizes that to you? So think of those things when you cast your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Jeff Schlicht.
Thank you again. After listening to the committee make the presentation, I'm wondering if you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes. I was wondering if, I wasn't sure to say this, but it seems to me I don't see a lot of enthusiasm in the committee for any of the alternatives that were presented. Am I incorrect in thinking that? And if I'm not incorrect, do we say let's move forward with this process only with this list of 5 or whatever it is it's at? You guys have been the ones that have been doing the work for a while on this. If we're not enthusiastic, why does it need to be done now? Why can't we continue to have a discussion and find something that you get enthusiastic about? And I may be totally wrong. Maybe you're enthusiastic, so I'll just leave it there.
And Jeff, that's a great question. I think some of us are more anxious to give you our reservations about everything than our enthusiasm, simply because we don't want to have a horse in the race. We want the community to be selecting, not the 10 members of the committee. And I think you would be surprised to learn some of the things that we are rooting for behind the scenes, but we don't want to do that because we want this, as Lori says, we want this to be inclusive, and we want, we would love it if there were 3,000 votes that come back in when this goes out, because that would show that the community is enthusiastic, which I feel is much more important than us conveying our enthusiasm or dismay for any of these names.
So Dave, and I interpret what you
just
said to mean that there is some enthusiasm for at least something on the list, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Fair to say that? Okay, great. Then that's all I wanted to get.
So Jeff, let me if I can chime in. You know, a couple of things. Number one, I think we are really, as a group, trying to remain neutral as we are doing this presentation. We all have opinions, of course, but you know, we're trying. On the flip side, it is 4:45 on a Friday afternoon after a very long week. So I don't, you know, I know we've all had a pretty long week, and probably not the best time, but you know, we are committed to this, and we felt that this was the best time to try to get everybody who may be interested on this call. So it might be part of that too. So try not to take it any particular way other than this is the voice of everybody up to date that has expressed interest in various names. And that process in itself took a while and narrowed down to that top list that you saw there. So this has been a community event to date. And now we're down to the nitty gritty, and hopefully, you know, we will get a great response back, and we'll keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully we get a really good name out of all of this. So,
thank you for your work.
Yep.
Joe Mangachos.
Okay, thank you. When this process first started, it was very difficult for me to understand the name change because I've been a Colonial since 1986, but I do understand it, and I'm very happy and very thankful for all the work that the committee has done. I just want to throw something out. In these times of division in so many different areas, there are a lot of clubs around the world that use the name United. So something like a Western Connecticut United. And then you can have any mascot that you want. For example, there's a club in England, Dr. Betts, I apologize, Manchester United, that has a mascot, a Red Devil, but they're known as Manchester United. So just to throw that out, just an idea that I've thought about in the past, just with the times that we're living in. Thank you.
Melissa Stephen.
I very much support Joe Mangachos' statement in regards to using a non-animal as a mascot. I don't necessarily think we're stuck to using an animal as a mascot, and I think the message in something like United speaks volumes much more than any other thing that we can pick. So that's just my comment on that. In terms of when it does go out to vote and we're given options to vote on, the student that spoke a little while ago who gave his rationale on the choice of worms or the recommendation of worms, I thought was enlightening in that he provided a rationale for his recommendation. And I think it would be very helpful when this goes out to the community that a rationale or a meaning underlying the recommendations or the choices would really be helpful for us to frame or help our decision making in our votes.
Melissa, specifically, so for each of the candidates that's on the final ballot is, you know, essentially what meaning to WCSU or just meaning in general?
The meaning to WCSU or how it would represent Western.
How it would represent. Okay.
Yes.
Hey Jay, my recommendation is that we ask for that information during the recommendation process along with our research. I think could be something that we could just combine as a group before we send it out.
We could write that up. Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, Melissa. We are going to John DeRosa. John DeRosa. Please unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. So I also like the idea of Western United. And I also like the idea that it doesn't tie you or us to any sort of symbol. I mean, you can kind of decide that maybe as a second task or a second step. But I think United for me, in like Joe said, in especially reflecting what's going on during these times, I think would be inspiring and a nice message and something that everybody could get behind.
Thank you, John. Okay. Okay. Well, more hands are coming up. All right. We're going to go with, again, if I pronounce your name wrong, incorrectly, please accept my apologies. Rada. Rada, if you can unmute yourself. Okay. Let me see. Joe, I'm assuming your hand just went back up, so I'm going to unmute you again.
Can you hear me, John?
Yes.
Okay. Just one question. Is there any possibility that United is now considerable, that we can consider United? Or is it too late for that?
The committee.
I would propose, I just hearing all of the feedback, I would, and maybe we'll be the yard goats. No, we won't be the yard. Could we have a write-in option? And if we have 3,000 submissions for the same write-in option, why not? I like that idea of being open to a new idea. That's part of the process.
And so I support what Alba said. Joe, we decided that we weren't going to accept solicitations at this town hall because we might get 37 solicitations. However, there's no reason, and we'll take this back to our next committee meeting to consider that what Alba just recommended could be done.
Okay, do you want me to email you? Have a good weekend, everyone.
IT, shut off my email, Joe.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thanks.
Brian Stevens, I believe you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just in terms of writing in, I mean, Jeff Schlicht sort of alluded to this fact, but I would advocate for having the ability to have a write-in, mostly because when the ballot went out, I think given the response, it might be a wise choice to open the valve a little bit to get some more suggestions, given that, since this process has began, people may have been inspired by a couple alternatives. And while people are throwing out alternatives, I want to throw one out that no one picked. I was surprised, is Riders, RIDERS, as a alternative as well, because of the Sybil Luddington connection to Danbury. She was a Paul Revere-like character in Danbury, and a number of women in the Revolutionary War did ride to warn supporters of the revolution of the British approach. And that's all I wanted to say.
Great, thank you. Rada did, and again, I apologize if I'm saying the wrong name, but they did email me, so I just want to read their email real quick. Whoops. Her message was, thank you for allowing me in during the mascot meeting. Some technical difficulties with the computer system. What they were going to say is that they think that when a decision gets close, people realize it's quote unquote real, they will scurry to action. I wonder if there could be a last call for names, very much similar to what was just discussed. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, can I say jump in one thing? And it's interesting listening to it. I think, can anyone hear me?
Yes.
You didn't raise your hand, but yeah, we'll go ahead and let you talk.
Thanks. It was when we started the committee back in the summer, and I think we were thinking of one mascot and a name. Joe brings in an interesting concept where the name of the university will now be the Western United, and then the mascot is totally different. I think as a committee member, I never gave it that kind of thought, just for the record.
All right. Do we have any further questions before we close?
I just want to, I do want to,
John, Lori did not have her hand up.
I know. You know me, I always just chime right on in. I think I really want to make it clear to everybody on this, on this call that we as individuals, if we put names forward, it was through the process. So it was not Lori Mazza making a recommendation and it was a part of the group. Okay. When we had a call for names, and we did it once, we did it twice, and I do think that now the rubber's hitting the road. Everybody's like, oh, I've got this isn't good enough. We should do this. We as committee members never injected our own personal stuff. It went through, if we had a recommendation, through the process. So I just want to be clear that the names that were put forward did not, and I want to make this really clear, did not come from the committee. This came from the solicitation that went out, the two solicitations that went out before. So I really just want to preface on how these came about, and our job and our charge was to gather the information, do the research, try to coordinate everything, so all of you can make the best decision possible on behalf of the university. So, or the recommendation to the president. So, I really want to be clear on that it wasn't, Lori Mazza making a decision, and putting forward a name. That's not how that process worked. So I just wanted to clarify.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Excuse me, Jay, I don't mean to take over your role as the host, but as a moderator, I did receive another email. This is from Mr. Seth Hurt, appears to be one of our students. He wanted to know if we would consider Western Wave.
Wave?
Wave. So we've got the Green Wave in New Milford. I think Tulane is also the Green Wave, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Darien High School is the Blue Wave down on our shore.
That's
Maybe
true.
we could use the Housatonic Wave.
Yes. The Orange Wave.
Thank you,
but,
Seth.
but I think the best answer to the question is, if we go to write in, that could be written in along with the finalists.
Right.
All right.
And actually, before we close, I want to give Mr. Glenn Gleisner an opportunity to maybe email me his question if he's having technical difficulties. If you'd like to email me, Glenn, it's Murphy, MURPHYJ @wcsu.edu. We'll give him a few minutes if he wants to submit his question or comment. In the meantime, Lori, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I'm good. Thank you. This is how our meetings go, everyone. So no, it's good.
I'm just going to say, oh, sorry, John. I definitely, while I'm in support of the write-in, I definitely would encourage anyone who has any ideas to just send them so they don't have to be write-ins, and it could be something that's actually on the ballot. Just because if you think of something, 20 minutes before putting in your vote, if you rally people behind it, it may be something that ends up being chosen and not something that's written by a handful of people. So I think this is really why we wanted to have a survey where people hand in suggestions in addition to this town hall, so we can bring forth ideas that people come up. So I would just say, instead of having a write-in, let's have something brought beforehand that can also just end up being on the ballot as an option. And our meetings are Tuesdays at 2:00. So the link should be on the website. If not, I'll update it, but feel free to drop by in any of our meetings, and we meet every week. Last semester we were bi-weekly, but any Tuesday you're free, everyone is welcome to our weekly meetings.
Thank you for that information. That's a very valid point as well. So Ryan Kavanaugh, you have the mic now.
Hey guys, how's everyone going? So Lori might kill me for this question. I see her put her hand over her head already. So in terms of branding of the college, when I came here, we were Western. I was told WestCon can't be on anything. Our field said Western. Then we had Chuck. Then we had different colors, and now we're changing our mascot, which I'm completely fine with. But in terms of the branding, we've gotten stuff done the last few years here, and it seems like every year it's been changed. And so when the decision was to remove Chuck, I don't think there was an understanding that we do have a huge Chuck on the middle of our field, and he's in our office, he's in everywhere. So as much as we want to change our name, or we're going to change our name, when does that stuff change? I mean, we can be the WestCon Worms, but in 5 years, we could still have Chuck the Colonial on the middle of our turf field.
Yeah, so I'll jump in. Ryan, the committee did talk about this, and I think one of the things that we meant to bring it up earlier was this is a process. This is not going to be an overnight scenario where for the Worms you're going to see worms everywhere, right? It's just not going to happen. I don't know if you know of anybody who's willing to donate $1 million, to change the turf, but that means Chuck is going to be there for probably the next 5 years, regardless of how we change our name, right? There's some large ticket items around campus that are going to take some time. So we will do certainly our best, I'm sure, in our various areas, or whether that's alumni, or whether that's athletics. I like to think within athletics, for the most part, we are pretty good, except for big old Chuck smack dab in the middle of the field. That's, we do have some big expenses, and it's going to take some time. So when this rolls out, whenever it's decided, I'm sure that'll be a part of the discussion, that this is not going to be everybody comes back in the fall, and you're going to see worms or warthogs, whatever, wolves, or whatever the name is, United, whatever it is, that we are, it's just not going to happen.
To piggyback on what Lori just said, if you remember, with just the addition of the color, the alteration of the color and the logo, you can still find cupolas on campus to this day. It is a very slow and laborious process, and there's a financial commitment to it. One of the things the committee is we kind of identified where Chuck is and where it's big, and little places, starting this summer, he was taken out of things, but we also have a backlog of materials on campus that have Colonial Chuck on it, which we're not going to throw away. It's going to be used. When it's gone, it won't be replaced, but it has to be used. So, to Lori's point, probably it will take us the entire 5 years to move on to the new mascot in total. However, thinking of Move-In Day with the new students, T-shirts in the fall is probably the first place you would see the new mascot once it is selected. All right.
Thank you.
Did Glenn get you the email, John?
Well, I did not get one from Glenn. However, I did get one from Deshaun Hardy Walker. He writes, "Hi, I'm a football athlete, and I wouldn't think athletes would not like those animals to wear and represent in competition. I like the wolves, and I think everyone would be comfortable with that."
Thank you. All right.
Good. I don't believe I see any other hands up.
I'm jinxing us, so someone else has to say goodbye now.
Lori? Well, look,
right.
before we end the meeting, I do want to recognize Jay and Anna for your leadership and guidance in this whole thing, especially Anna from the student perspective. I know Anna has put a lot of time and effort and energy into this project as well. And for those that aren't familiar with Anna, she is our student government president also. So she has a lot on her plate, and I commend her for the work that she's done, and I thank her publicly here.
All right.
You're here.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, so everybody, on behalf of the mascot committee, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we'll hope to make our final recommendation in the hopes of their announcement for the end of the spring semester. Take care.
Make sure everybody votes.